In our world, some of the biggest threats are the ones we can't see. But what if we could teach nature itself to be our watchdog? That's the incredible science we're digging into today, biosensors. I mean, it's a huge problem, right? From the water we drink to the air we breathe, we're surrounded by this invisible world that has a massive impact on our lives. So let's start with something you use every single day. So picture this glass of water right here. Looks perfectly clear, perfectly safe, but it could be hiding all sorts of nasty stuff. Industrial chemicals, harmful bacteria that are completely odorless, tasteless, and invisible to us. And it's the same deal with the food we eat. You see that beautiful, shiny apple? It might have trace amounts of pesticides on it, things that can build up over time without any sign on the outside. And here's where it gets really personal. Inside our own bodies, the tiny molecular clues that signal the very start of a disease can float around for years, completely silent. So yeah, how on earth do you fight an enemy you can't even see?
Well, it turns out we fight biology with, biology. The answer is the biosensor. And the whole idea is just beautiful in its simplicity. You take something from nature, like an enzyme or even a whole living cell, they call it a bioreceptor, which is already an expert at finding one specific thing. Then you just have to connect that to a signal we can actually see or measure.
Okay, so it really just boils down to these three simple steps. First, the bioreceptor has to recognize its one specific target and ignore everything else around it. Second, it has to react, sparking some kind of change. And third, it has to report that change with a clear signal, maybe a color change, an electrical current, or even a flash of light. Recognize, react, report. It's a simple framework with world-changing potential. And to really see how powerful this is, let's dive into this amazing story of how scientists literally taught bacteria to glow. All right, so our first story starts deep underground with a massive environmental problem that needed a ridiculously tiny solution. 6 trillion liters. That's the mind-boggling estimate of how much groundwater in the United States is contaminated with uranium. It's a huge issue, and step one to cleaning it up is knowing exactly where the danger is. But there's a catch. So here's the tricky part with the old way of doing things. A standard chemical test tells you the total amount of uranium in the water, but it can't tell you the most important thing. Is that uranium safely locked away in some mineral? Or is it bioavailable, meaning it's in a form that living things can actually absorb? See the difference? One just tells you what's there, the other tells you what's dangerous. So, what do? Well, scientists turn to a true expert, a common bacterium called Colobacter. Now, this little organism has spent millennia evolving to survive in these contaminated places. It already knows how to detect and defend itself against uranium. It's got the recognize and react parts totally down. It just needed a way to report back to us. So here's the really brilliant part: how they rewired this little guy. First, scientists pinpointed the exact gene, called ERCA, that the bacteria uses as its built-in alarm for dangerous uranium. Then, they did something amazing. They borrowed the gene that makes some jellyfish glow, the one for green fluorescent protein, and they basically wired it to that alarm system. So now, when the uranium alarm goes off, the bacteria doesn't just put up its defenses, it lights up like a firefly. And the result? It was like creating a living, breathing sensor. When they tested it with real contaminated water from a research site at Oak Ridge, it worked perfectly. Suddenly, the invisible threat was totally visible. Under a UV light, those bacteria just lit up bright green, reporting the danger with a signal you absolutely could not miss. Okay, so this whole idea of hijacking a natural detection system, it's unbelievably powerful. But it's not just for cleaning up the environment. The same exact thinking is now sparking a revolution in a place that's even more personal to all of us: our own health. And you guessed it, the exact same recognize, react, report logic applies here. Our bodies are just swimming with molecules that can act as biomarkers. These are the early warning signs for diseases. If we can build bioreceptors to recognize these specific molecules, we can spot illnesses way, way earlier than ever before. Let's take something like Alzheimer's disease. For families who are worried about a loved one's symptoms, getting a clear diagnosis can be this long, frustrating process, sometimes with an accuracy as low as 61%. But now, a new biosensor blood test that hunts for key protein biomarkers is changing all of that, hitting a stunning 91% accuracy. I mean, that kind of leap in certainty, that's absolutely life-changing for families. But here's what gets me really excited. This isn't just for fancy high-tech labs anymore. This incredible power is breaking out and becoming radically accessible. The dream is to make this detection capability simple, cheap, and something that eventually anyone can use. Check this out. Researchers have made these simple paper strip biosensors. They look and work kind of like a pregnancy test, but they detect pesticides on food. The strip uses an enzyme as the bioreceptor, and it changes color if there's contamination. You just snap a picture with your smartphone, and an app analyzes it and gives you a precise reading. It's basically the power of a huge diagnostic lab right in your pocket. So, okay, if we can already do all that, what's next? Well, the future of biosensors is where things get really wild. It's truly the stuff of science fiction, where that line between technology and biology just gets completely blurry. I mean, some of the ideas on the horizon are just wow. Imagine swallowing an engineered probiotic, a good bacteria that can actually patrol your body, find early-stage liver tumors, and then send a signal out in your urine. Or what about houseplants that literally glow to let you know if the air quality in your home is bad? People are even working on cell-based tests that could map out your entire allergy profile from a single drop of blood. And it all brings us back to this one huge, exciting question. We started by teaching bacteria to see pollution and cells to see disease. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. We have the entire biological toolkit of the planet to work with. So, what's the next invisible threat? The next hidden secret that we're going to teach biology to see?